have Huberto out there or Lucic out there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think it's pretty effective line. He's a lot better there than playing on a fourth line because of geez, before he got benched, he was giving the puck away all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's the best use of him. What about you?
Well, he fits in. He complements them in terms of what he can do.
Yeah,
He's smart enough to play with them.
yeah.
And
You get a checker, hard nosed guy with a passer and a scorer, and that's your kind
yeah,
of ideal line, eh?
yeah.
Kind of
When
what
you
they
put
are.
when you put lines together, what do you think? What do you look for in terms of combinations?
Well, that's what I always look for. Is that sort of when I coach higher levels? You know, a passer, a scorer, and someone to get them the puck. And I try to avoid putting a play ender with skill players because play enders nullify skill players,
Yeah,
especially if they're good at getting open.
yeah.
They get open, they get the puck, and then they take the skill players out of the game. So they've got to be pretty good.
At what age would you refer to a player as a play ender?
Oh, whatever. Even the age I'm coaching now,
Yeah,
we got some players. We got some players that just get rid of the puck. Not very many of them, so they're really hard to play with. So they gotta. I think you got to put that kind of player with each other. You know that
can
they
they
just
not
work.
develop an awareness?
Well, you try to, but I'm talking about in a game. You're not developing much. You talk to the player, and until they develop the habits,
Yeah,
it's no use putting somebody that just fires a puck away with people that can make something happen because they just give the puck away all the time.
yeah. No, I understand. I'm just wondering, or I guess the bottom line is, are people born that way, or can they
Well,
learn?
I think they just never learned how to play. So you continue like tonight. We'll practice and we'll try to do some things to make everybody, you know, carry the puck and make plays,
Yeah,
stuff like that. And hopefully, like a couple on our team are getting better at it. First they used to just get it and ice it. Even in our end, they'd ice the puck.
yeah.
And now they're trying to do some stuff. So it's always a work in progress.
There's a young defenseman, 16-year-old with Jordan's team.
Yeah,
Uh, I watched her play before Christmas, and she really caught my eye as being really smart.
yeah,
She handled the puck and protected it, made plays, bought time and space. And then yesterday against Dom's team, she literally toyed with everybody.
all right.
Um, I've never seen anybody play like that. So smart, so coy, um, and I sort of rated her a top prospect and potential player to you know CIS. Now I say she can play NCAA because I'm comparing her to players on Dom's team
Yeah,
who are getting commitments.
yeah.
And uh, Jordan Jordan just said he just enjoys watching her, and he
Just
says to himself,
smart, eh?
"Did she really do that?" And like she'll make 4 or 5 evasive tight turns under pressure,
Yeah,
move the puck up the ice, and she'll rush the puck coast to coast when it's there. And it was really, and I'm wondering, here this girl is at 16, and
yeah,
Jordan feels she right now would be the third best defenseman on the AAA midget team.
yeah,
This is the best place for her because she's got the confidence to do things with the puck.
yeah.
And I'm pretty impressed. It's really a good sign. But You know, you use the term play ender.
Yeah.
You look for people to get playmakers, right?
Well, you got playmakers. That's kind of like Huberdeau is supposed to be, and
Yeah.
you know,
And
but
what are the other sort of categories that you refer to?
well, you want a great checker, someone that's going to go and dig the puck out of the corners,
Yeah.
you know, and a playmaker, you know, a passer,
Yeah.
and a scorer. You know, like if you're a scorer, like Murray Heatley, he doesn't want the puck, right? He
Yeah.
just wants to be there. He doesn't want the puck. He doesn't want to carry the puck to the neutral zone.
Yeah.
He wants a centerman. He played with this Mike Bruce in Europe. Then they played in our men's team.
Yeah.
Mike might be the best men's player I've seen in Calgary. And Rogers was on our team too, but Rogers never were, you know, he just turned it on wherever it felt like. So Mike Bruce, incredible passer, saucer pass that didn't even wobble. And he'd carry the puck, bring people to him, and Heater would break. And he'd just give it to him as he hit the blue line, you know?
Yeah.
And they complemented each other so much.
Yeah.
You know, and they just needed someone to get the puck to them. So on loose pucks.
How would you compare and refer to Danny compared to Murray?
Uh
Hi, Tim.
Hey,
Tim. Well, they're similar in as far.
Comparing the Heatleys, Tim, Tom's telling me is
mm,
we're looking at uh, trying to talk about line combinations. He talked about Lucic playing with Huberdeau, and it looks like in terms of line combinations, you know, you got a playmaker, you've got a physical checker, bigger player, and a scorer on the line. And we started talking about Tom started talking about Murray not wanting the puck in the neutral zone. And then my question to he wants to get it in the O zone, so he prefers the other players do the neutral zone work, and he'll support.
He wants it early in the ozone. He wants it near the blue line.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you. He give me shit if I carry the puck into the hash and then try to pass to him.
Yeah.
He said that he'd say, well, I only got one play then. He'd say, hit me just as we're getting to the blue line, and then I can read the D. If I can burn him, I'll burn him. If he comes at me, I'll give it back to you. He said, so it's important to get the puck early. And Danny could really burn guys and score, but I think Danny's also a playmaker. A great pass. You know, that kid that scored Bedard.
Yeah.
Danny, Bedard reminds me of Danny a lot. The way he holds the puck away in front of him,
Yeah.
and he always faces a play. Danny always faces a play on his forehand, doing everything on his forehand.
Yeah.
And you watch Bedard, and that's what he does too. You know, and he gets like Gretzky. He faces a play, and then he goes backwards facing the play.
Yeah.
You know, and then if the guy rushes at him, he can beat him. But he's always in that strong position. And I think Danny did that a lot better than Murray did.
Yeah.
Murray was more pure scorer.
Dan's way bigger too.
Yeah. Yeah. Murray's my height and Danny's 6'4".
Yeah.
But Dan didn't get drafted in the Bantam draft because he hadn't grown yet. So he was about 5'8", and he was never a fluid looking skater. And of course he scored, but they thought, well, he's going to be too slow and not very big, but they never, Karen is like 5'9" or 10, and I guess her brothers are 6'4", 6'5", but they live in Germany, so nobody saw them.
Mm.
Danny grew that year that I coached the Korean men that we played you. Danny grew like 6 or 7 inches that summer.
Mm.
So then he went to AAA midget, and I think he got 16 points in 4 games in that national final.
Yeah, that's the same as when I was think between grade 9 and grade 10, I think I grew like 4 or 5 inches or maybe 6. I don't know, like, because I was kind of a little guy in grade 9, but then remember my basketball coach in grade 10 and said, "Hey, what the hell did you eat over the summer?"
Yeah. Well, Cassie says that about her daughter. He says that I think I can see her growing at the dinner table. Now she's about 5'7", and
Yeah. I was just thinking watching last night, 2 things. Number one, I remember like 3 years ago thinking that before they did it, that Calgary and Edmonton should just switch Lucic for Neil because they needed Lucic's physical presence.
yeah,
And
they're
making
known
the
as
exact same amount of money, and they didn't deeply need Neil's supposed scoring that never materialized. So I was all in favor of it, and people have been all over him for 2 years, and I always thought he was still useful. And then early this year, when Wally, when you and I went to the game, the Washington game early in the year, courtesy of Tom, that Lucic looked noticeably, hey Sammy, noticeably a step quicker to me this year. And after all those observations, I was thinking last night, I think they're in a perfect spot right now. Like they have 4 really good lines. And before the playoffs, the lines they will change again. But I will bet dollars to donuts they come back to this combination exactly of the lines, like near the playoffs or in the playoffs, because it really well balanced now. They can all score.
about 4 lines for a month because that
Sorry?
line had Japani and Backlund and Coleman. They were one of the best lines in the NHL last year, and they only just got put together like 2 weeks ago.
See, Tim, and with Sammy being on, I want to ask this question. We've been talking about line combinations and the chemistry of how many, what kind of thing. And I really like what Tom said to begin the conversation. He said, well, you don't want a play ender to play with a playmaker and a scorer. And so he sort of broke them down into playmakers.
Sort of like Jen Wakefield playing with Poulin. That's a really bad combination.
Okay. And that's what I'm getting at. So my question, and you can think on the female side, Sammy, I'm thinking on the male side. And when I evaluated players, I always look at a complete player as a player who could score but also make plays. So I look at Crosby's that kind of a player. I don't know that the Flames have enough scoring. Pure scorers, guys that are going to finish and put the puck in the net. But on the female side, I'm trying to look at the chemistry of who can play with who, and I'm curious about the combination of playmaker, scorer, and complementary player who's basically a checker and a strength, puck possessor, protector, battler. But your thoughts, Sammy, on the female side. And on the male side, think of anybody who's more complete that can do both.
For sure. So it was, hi guys, Merry Christmas, by the way.
Female Sammy, thanks.
Happy New Year.
I was just having this conversation with my GM, Angela James, yesterday, and she was asking about certain players because we're, of course, scouting now for next year. And she was asking why certain players with enormous skill have never had a chance with the national team. And I really felt like with the national team, there is pockets of players, and you're really only competing against that kind of player for a spot on the national team. So you guys have coached there. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like, a small, quick player with good hands is up against a Marie-Philippe Poulin, is up against sort of those next levels, like somebody like a Jill Saunier or a Victoria Bach, or like they're kind of in the same grouping, and they're not going against a Laura Stacey to make the team. Like they're not going against sort of that power forward. And so within creating a national team, I'd be really interested to hear from you guys. Are you guys creating that, thinking about that? And are these players really only up against sort of that type of player? You don't have to talk names. I was just kind of curious in the makeup of a team.
Well, I can talk to you because as the head scout, I looked for the 3 traits: skill, pure skill, hockey sense, and intangibles. And it sort of overlaps all 3 areas.
But
And
as the scout, you're just getting them to the camp to be selected. Like
that's right. And when they get there, the chemistry pieces come in. You discover who really can play with people with the puck. So when we looked at evaluated hockey sense, we evaluated offensive hockey sense, and I particularly defensive hockey sense. And then there's that moment of transition. So the thinking aspect, to me, and right now the smartest player on the female side is that new forward for
Sarah
the,
Fillier?
yeah, by far. Like
Mhm.
I talked about the goal she scored with Carla McLeod, where that blind backhand pass, it was intended for Poulin, but it happened to end up on her stick and go in the net against the U.S. So I really think there's nobody on that team that thinks the game at that level. And so I'm just curious about this, and I asked Tom, oh boy, at what age do you say a player's only a play ender and write them off? Because he's coaching U13 girls. And I'm saying, at what point do coaches give up on this kind of process? And I think there are enough fundamental decision-making games and thinking games, deliberate, progressive ones, to teach that so it can be better at all levels. Coaches just aren't, really totally immersed in that, the progressive development of the hockey IQ, because in our age, I think we just said, Tim, and you can correct me, it was inherited. You either had it or you didn't. And I still think we coach that way. You really have it or you don't.
Well, and somebody like Laura Stacey has become a main contributor right now, who was generally a 4th liner and was known to be a forechecker. The last 5 games of the rivalry series has sort of been one of their mainstays in terms of creating offense. So I don't know, maybe she's worked,
Yeah.
maybe just being in Montreal with Danielle Sauvageau and Marie-Philippe Poulin, I mean, that she can't help but learn all of these traits. I don't know but yeah, so when you're creating the team, are you like, can somebody only make the team if they replace a player that was similar to them?
Well, the bottom line to me is their intangibles.
Well, I think that's maybe generally speaking true, Sammy, but I will preface anything by saying I've always felt like people were way too concerned about size in the female game, because there's 2 things. Like in the male game, yeah, size and toughness intimidates, but so does speed and skill. Like I know as a defenseman, like playing against Edmonton was intimidating, not because Semenko was out there. That added an element, of course, but it was intimidating because they had so much speed and skill. It was freaking hard to defend. And, arguably that's even truer in the female game because there's a little bit less physicality in the game in terms of, bumping people, getting in people's way, there's less need for size. Of course, everybody loves a big player who can really move and skate, but I've always thought there was an overemphasis on size in the female game. And I would also agree that Florida's game has improved tremendously. It just matured a lot. She used to play one-on-one a lot, give the puck away because she lost as many one-on-one situations, when she's trying to beat somebody. At the elite level, she lost as many as she won. She wasn't as effective. She didn't use her teammates as well. It's been a bit simpler game now and a smarter game. And so, credit to her. Like, she's developed her game. Not because she's now a goal scorer and she wasn't before, but she's just a smarter, more well-rounded, more intelligent player who has size and skating ability and plays with really good intensity. Like, who wouldn't want that?
And
Tim,
is
who
that
do you
something
refer
that
to?
maybe Troy Ryan is developing? Like, is that something that he would allow? Like, does it take a coach thinking outside the box to allow that to happen?
I think, well, obviously, I think the coaches have an impact, but I think probably more the credit would go to Laura herself for doing self-evaluations with her coaches at, not just Troy, but the coaches she works with sort of daily throughout the season. Like, she's developed her game. And so I think she deserves as much credit as her coaches.
Well, Tim, I want to talk about her and Troy. You talked to me, Tim, and Sammy after the game. Tim made reference to the pass she made, to the play, how she made the pass for the zone entry for Saradaki to score.
No, that was Renata Fast.
Was it? Okay, I'm making a mistake there, because I think that the idea of who you have out on the ice at the time, that's a coach gut thing. And he had Saradaki.
Did you see when Saradaki scored and they panned to the coaches and Corey Chevry was like kind of laughing, hitting him on the shoulder, like kind of like you were right kind of mentality,
or I was right, or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever it was, but it was really
you.
intriguing that she even had ice time at that point and had that. Yeah, it's a nice change to see within the system that they he is developing a lot of those players.
It's almost like they had the discussion like, hey, should we put this first game player who's skilled, should we let her play 3-on-3? And one of them probably said, well, you know what? We might as well, now or never. Yeah. Like, how are we gonna find out? And they were like, yeah, see, it works.
I got a story about the same thing. The art of coaching. That what we're talking about is the ability to coach with your gut. And the head coach ultimately has to make those decisions, but he's influenced by the assistant. And I thought, watching them play 2 years ago, there wasn't that flexibility and thinking. Now this series is that kind of a series. You're experimenting and you can coach with your gut. And I think the ability to let them play, in quotation marks, and bring out their qualities, you don't know if you don't coach that way and allow them to play and make mistakes and learn from them. The players will rise to the occasion. So I have a story from Danielle Goyette. And it was a gut feeling when Kevin Dineen was coaching late in the game. And she went over to Dineen late in the game and suggested a line combination. And he went with it. They ended up tying and winning the game. So that's coaching by feeling. And when you've played a lot and coached a lot, and you get those feelings, I think somebody's speaker's interfering.
Oh, it started when Brack came on, so it's probably.
Hey, Brack, turn your speaker off. Anyway, that's my point about this whole process. You're always got to be learning. You got to be open-minded to it. You can't stay with what isn't fixed, what isn't working forever. You try different things, and I think the ability to be flexible and experiment, within reason, where you're not going off the wall here and changing everything too often. And I think I totally agree that I like the National Women's Program now in the last 4 years, the way it's evolved. I think that Troy's experimenting with offense, I know, is a reality. Letting them play more offensively, stop overcoaching defensively. And that's happening. Now, getting back to the idea of, line combinations and chemistry, I just feel the most complete player is both a playmaker and a scorer and can play with physicality, but that's not his priority. He protects the puck with physicality. He can win races and battles, but more often he doesn't have to because he's in the right place to get it and keep it. So Crosby fits into that category. And there aren't many players that have those two traits. And I asked Don Phelps last night, who would you, when all the players you've coached, and you can all think about this, even Carey and Sammy on your team, I think who would you put out on 3-on-3 is the kind of player you want on any line. But if you can get those players out together in 3-on-3 where they got time and space, you've got something. And Tom, can you guess who he picked? Your speaker.
What the Flames?
No, it's a player he coached, Junior A.
Oh,
And you coached him too. It was Danny Heatley.
oh yeah.
So and you said he's a playmaker and a scorer. So
And he's very competitive.
Yeah.
Like we play games to 5. We had this popcorn hockey Tuesday nights, and he started playing with us when he was about 14 or so. And even when he started the pro, you didn't know really what the score is. You say, "What's the score?" And Danny always knew what the score was. And these are just little pickup games to 5. So he's a great guy for 3-on-3.
So Sammy, in terms of the female game, I'm just going to mention to everybody here, there's a young female player that plays on Jordan's team, Tim. You've got to get to watch a AA game, or if she gets called up to a AAA game. She's pretty special with hockey IQ, and she played against Dom's team, and Jordan's team had one of the best games I've seen a team play this year. Scissoring with the D on offensive zone, cycling, attacking from behind the net. They just did everything. But this player, a defense player, just toyed with the puck against the other team and was able to move it, play safe, play smart. And she's risen to another occasion. Her name is McGonigal, and I think she's a player that I would start tracking now for looking where is she going to go someday. And Jordan mentioned this to me a month ago, that he thought she might not only be a AAA prospect or a NCAA CIS prospect, but she should be somebody to watch on the national team radar.
Why is she not on the AAA team?
Because she's 16, and Jordan feels the fact she stayed with him is allowed her to rise to this level. She would be a third line, maybe he said right now when she's called up, she's definitely a 4 or 5 player. And he says now she might be a number 3 defenseman on the AAA team. So what's best for her at this point? Maybe it would be in a real world, bring her up for the rest of the year. She's confident now. But she got to that level now of, and Carrie, you've been through it. You've kept 17-year-olds down. One of them went to the NHL. You kept him in minor midget when he was 16. So you know what we're talking about, the decision making of when do you move kids and how do you read them in terms of their growth stage, their developmental stage. So Kerry, you can talk about that, and I don't know on the female side, watching players grow up. This is one of the first young players I've seen. And Tom, you've got U13s, and obviously you're thinking, gee, who's going to be a national prospect? Because those kids appear, they'll appear. They'll start to stand out so much. They catch your eye that you're going, oh my God. But Kerry, can you talk about that?
Well, I think over the years, one of the most difficult thing is that, all athletes and all kids grow and get physically strength at different times. And, there's a certain individual that'll, be strong all the way through, and there's ones that need to be let grow. And I think my experience is that, taking the kids that are the best that year, that time, and ready to play. I mean, obviously there's numerous stories I can go over, but probably the one that, is dear to my heart is the Jay Beagle story. Jay Beagle was a 5'9" kid when he came to midget AAA and to try out as a 16-year-old. And, he could have made our team, as a fourth liner, Tim, quite easily. But he needed to experience playing the game in the offensive part of it. I mean, he was always a great foot soldier, hardest working, best listener. So I talked to him and his dad, and I just said, I think you need to feel the confidence of being a scorer, being a top 10 player, and to play midget AA to gain that experience. And I'd bring him up. Well, interesting enough, I mean, he was only 5'9" at that time. So he grows 2 inches to become 5'11" at 17, but at 19, he grew to be 6'1". And then at 21, he grew to be 6'4". Although that's quite a difference in, in growth spurts too, at very unusual times. And so as it goes, we win the national championship, and he's our #1 center. And as a 17-year-old, as an 18-year-old, he gets cut from the Hitmen. In lieu of 16-year-old, and this is one of the challenges our system's facing today, is that, looking forward to try and perceive where kids are going to end up. Some teams do it very, very well, and other teams don't. And so he got cut as an 18-year-old, and he hadn't even reached his full potential at 18, but he got cut. Goes and plays Junior A. Plays there for 2 years, gets some girth and continues his work ethic and his perseverance, and then goes to Anchorage for 2 years, continues to grow, but decides he doesn't like the college. His schooling isn't quite what he wants, so he gets his dad, and they do a walk-on at Idaho, the Idaho Steelhawks. So at 22, and he's still not really fundamentally physically ready to play, at the level where he attained. But he goes there and they win the Kelly Cup. Gets noticed by the Hershey. The next 2 years he plays on the Calder Cup team and becomes, that's where he really became his true self, I guess. And then the Washington Capitals. So he won an Air Canada Cup, a Kelly Cup, and then 2 Calder Cups and a Stanley Cup. And I guess the question you got to ask is that, the road, because his Pee Wee team he played on, Tim, had Mike Green and on it. And he played behind a lot of these star sort of players in his own community, Ryan Stone and some unbelievable players. And so he was like a 5th or 6th wheel. And, it was a pleasure to coach him because he was such a hardworking kid and he persevered. But what I've noticed overall, and that's just one of the good stories, and those things don't happen all the time, but I continually see young skill getting pushed ahead of maturity and compete and character. And sometimes that young skill needs to gain the compete, the character, and the skill. And it's a big problem in hockey today, is moving kids up before they're actually ready to compete at a level where they can gain confidence. And there's hundreds of different stories about it, but I just watch how we're treating our young athletes it's not fair to a lot of them. A lot of late bloomers, they're quitting. They're just getting out of it because we don't allow them to participate because the younger, more skilled person is coming in and taking their spot. So from a development standpoint, you got to develop all the kids. Just where's best to develop them? We should almost go to individual age brackets all the way through.
Gary, I
In my
want to
opinion.
talk about the female side because I believe that we've got it right on the female side now.
You're echoing, Wally.
Yeah, I wish I knew why. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We've gone through the idea of, do we bring kids up? And no, we keep them in under 18. We've had some kids that when we evaluate traits, they had trait scores higher in some of the traits than the national senior average. And they could have played on the team, but they couldn't develop. So right now on the female side, and Kim talking about Jordan's player playing AA, not playing AAA yet, she's a smallish type D and that good, and he feels it's perfect for her development. And time will tell, of course, because it's her development that matters. But I think patience with young players on the male side. I mean, I saw players last night. One of them, Carrie and I were watching, a player named Ives from the Flames, who's the smallest player, who's the only player that I thought had hockey IQ and could skate well enough. But of course, he's small and he hasn't even been drafted by anybody yet, let alone he's not on radar. He's just too small. And that's sort of the stereotypical thing on the male side, not so much on the female side. But I don't know that acceleration of players is a problem, Sammy, on the female side. I don't think it is. Maybe it is. You're nodding yes. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it certainly is in Ontario, where the be all end all is to play in that what used to be called the PWHL, but now it's the U18 Elite League in Ontario. So it's above midget, right? So players here, if you play on U18 AA, is not revered as much as playing in the junior league. We'll call it the junior league. And so parents will take their kids all around the province to play to be able to get a spot on that team at 15, 16, when really they should be playing midget. So I think to Carrie's point, what I was hearing from his conversation is not so much that we're not developing kids, it's that we're not, that there's so much reverence put on the top level that if you're not playing the top level, well, you're never going to make it. And so a AA or a single A kid is seen to not be developing or progressing by the rest of society. And I feel like, Carrie, your point that you made, I could have been sometime last year, but I say this to the parents on my little U9 team all the time, and within the league even, is that, you know, we don't tier kids in the classroom. And I don't know if that was you that said it, but I'm equating it with you because I think it is such a marvelous concept that, yeah, it shouldn't be about where they are in the system. It should be where they are developmentally and what coach can work with them at that point, right? It shouldn't be, oh, they're on the AAA team, so they're bound to be moving forward. Yeah, you know, AA should be just as amazing. They have a coach like Jordan, for instance, who coaches AA. That's awesome. Like even single A, these kids should not be just kind of left by the wayside because they're playing there. So within women's hockey, I feel like this is just really the last 5 years that we're really seeing that, oh, my kid has to play rep hockey. And we ran into that this year with our team in Oakville, that we had gone for 2 months of playing. We're house league. There's 4 house league teams, so we had to like pick the house league so they're equal. And then Billy and I are the coaches. So my husband in a sled and me as a woman, the only woman in the organization in a women's hockey team, which is crazy to me. But 2 months after the season started, they decided they're going to have another rep team because parents were not happy that there was only one rep team. There's only one AA team in Oakville. They wanted a single A team. So 2 months after the season started, they started plucking kids off of all of our teams, and then they reorganized the teams. And Billy and I said, like, we've been together 2 months. That's the whole point of it, is that we get to know the kids and we're coaching them. And now you're taking them off of a team with somebody who is a sledge hockey player. They're never going to have this experience again, with a woman who has played at the Olympics, let alone has her own hockey school and stuff. Like, and now you're moving them on to some dad's team who just started coaching. Like, that just, I don't know. We were just horrified by that system, that is still in existence. And it's all because parents wanted their kids to be playing rep hockey. And didn't matter that they're 7. Like, they're 7 years old and they're girls. Like, it doesn't matter. But anyways, I digress. And I just wish that more people had this mentality. But yes, we're seeing it already in the women's game. I think it just permeates, Wally, now that there's money on the line, there's scholarships on the line, and parents get just as crazy.
I just want to reiterate one other little thing that I watched over time, because I really believe that the fun factor of hockey is at jeopardy today with this acceleration, and kids tend to, when they gain confidence and when they play and they enjoy the experience, is when it's gonna be the best for the development process. And we're taking that fun factor away. Dominating is and gaining more confidence is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think that it needs to be talked about, because there's no use being a fourth line kid struggling at a AAA level when you could play at your own age bracket and possibly dominate. And so I use a criteria. You shouldn't leave a level until you've gained the confidence and played to the top of your potential. And what's happening is we're taking 15-year-old kids and we're putting them into a AAA environment, and they digress in so they start in Bantam at 3 points a game. They finish off their Bantam AAA level, with 3 points a game. Then at 15 they play AAA and they drop to 0.5 points a game. And then at 16 they move up and play Junior A and they drop to 0.2 points a game. And then, and the experience I'm telling you right now is about Danny Bertram.
Yeah.
Tim, I think Jim. I watched Danny Bertram, one of the most gifted assets in Western Canada, go from being a confident point getter to an energy player on a fourth line on a world junior team for 2 straight years.
And
you think he enjoyed it? What's that?
And he became a fighter in the Eastern League. He's not very much bigger than I am.
Oh, I tried to talk to Jim about it, Tim, as he was going through it, because as a 15-year-old, and all he had to do, in my opinion, was, as a 16-year-old, just stay and play midget and become that 3-point a game guy like you were in Bantam. But he went to Camrose but that's just one of the ones I didn't like watching. But tell you another just quick interesting thing. The national championship team that I coached in 1990-91, there was 5 16-year-old kids that were really good players. And I chose to take some 17-year-olds ahead of them. Well, we won the national championship, and I took a lot of flack because I didn't take these 5 16-year-old kids. Well, these 5 16-year-old kids had one thing in common, is they went down and they developed. 4 years later, they were on the national championship Centennial Cup team. Okay. They developed, they didn't struggle at any point in their existence. And, I tell that story because struggling is not fun. Losing confidence isn't fun. And that's one of the challenges our development system is happening on the boys' side. We're pushing kids into not having fun by not developing.
Sammy, he said on the boys' side, the word confidence on the female side. You're working with a senior women's pro team. You've been with the national team. And that word, how important is it?
Oh, I mean, I think everybody on this call knows that it's everything. If you're not having fun, it doesn't matter, right? Now that the salaries in our league next year, some girls will be making $200,000 for 5 months of hockey. Like, it's crazy, right? The amount of change in the money in women's hockey has changed dramatically. And we have a free agency every summer. So you can sign 2-year contracts, but you can still renegotiate your contract. So yeah, they don't belong to us, which is also, I mean, it's a ton, right? So just a ton of pressure on the athletes. And, we see it when it comes down to points and assists and goals and, making sure that people are getting ice time. We're getting now called by agents whose players are not getting enough ice time. All these things we've never really had to deal with in women's hockey before. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the confidence of the player and how much fun they're having. Really, it's ensuring that the whole team feels valued too. Like, I think that it's hard to find a role as a president versus a GM within the hockey side, because I take care of most of the other side. But I've really tried to make my role simply about listening and hearing the player and having those check-ins with the players about everything else in their life that's going on, because trying to make them feel valued within a team and having them be okay with being on a third or a fourth line or not a power play, and not thinking about next year's contract and now maybe this is something that Tim can give some insight to, because now it's the pro mentality. This is very different than what I played. And yes, we played pro hockey in that it was the top level, but it was never the season by season. Like, it was just kind of your career and you just kind of finished when you could. I feel like the players always feel this like angst all the time that they need to perform right now or they're not gonna keep getting that contract. So it must be a really, really hard, it must be so difficult for the player. And Tim, you lived it. It's I'd be curious to get some insight on what that feels like all the time, because I certainly hear about it, and it is hard on the players.
Yeah, it is definitely, it's one of those things that is ever present, but partly because it's ever present, you eventually sort of mainly put it in the back of your mind. It's just kind of life in the pro sports world, it's just the way it is. Like somebody can,
maybe because we've never had it before, like maybe because it just started, whereas you probably started that when you're like 15 years of age playing junior, right? Like,
well, yeah, there's always that, and there's a degree of it certainly at the national team level, but there's always that feeling like somebody can replace you literally tomorrow if you get into an extended stretch of poor play. You never know what can happen, and that's just life at that level. But you just learn to deal with it. And again, Wally used the word, we started this talking about confidence, and that's what it comes down to. You have to be confident in what it is you bring to a team, and be confident that it's valuable and that you can bring it on a regular basis, and that then you have to have the confidence that when you go through those low periods, you can say to yourself, hey, I can play in this league, I belong in this league, and work with your coaches, maybe simplify some things, whatever it is, but you have to have that inner confidence that you can do it. And that's why, like we say, transmitting belief is one of the number one jobs of every coach, is to help, by transmitting belief from the coaches to the players. It helps the players develop that inner confidence that, like you said, that they're valued by their team, that they provide something to their team, and that they can grow that confidence themselves. Because nobody can give you the confidence, but coaches and teammates can help nurture the development of confidence, I think. But it's everything, really, everything. Mike Wally.
You just reinforced Kerry's point. His ability to convince parents, because if you don't convince the parent, the player is going to go wherever the parents wants them to. Whether it's a Bertram or whether it's a Beagle. And so the coach's ability to withstand the pressure of the association catapulting these young, talented players ahead, and the reality of developmental stages versus projected stages before they're confident enough to grow, and they feel confident. They already got 3 points a game. Well, I better go out and be challenged. So it's a real fine line from the parents' point of view, and a difficult line for the parents to understand. I think the players appreciate it. So, Kerry, how did you convince the Beagles?
Well, it was his physical size right at that point, like and his strength. Like he just wasn't mature. He wasn't an early mature. And so, they understood it. They didn't necessarily agree with it, but I guess they trusted this mindset. And I think he was better off for it. You take, I mean, he was only 5'9", so he wasn't a big guy. You know what I mean? And so,
That's enough for midget AAA, Kerry.
What's that? Yeah, it is enough for AAA, but his physical strength, like you're talking a guy who's, his enthusiasm and his work ethic is just off the charts. But to go and do it and go and try and do that, and it was only 1 year above. It just went in the tryouts, and when I was watching him, I just felt he needed another year to get to the level that he could really dominate that. And that confidence thing was huge, but it's interesting too, because the two names that were mentioned, Danny Heatley and Danny Bertram, the difference between the two is Danny Heatley played midget AAA at 16 and got 100 points. Bantam AAA, 100 points. He never left the level until he was a leading scorer at every level. So at 16, he could have probably played junior, eh, Tom?
Yeah.
But he played on a midget AAA team that had 3 first-round draft picks on it. Adrian Foster, Chris Kalanis. And they had the top 6 scorers in the Alberta Midget AAA League. But all 16-year-olds stayed and played midget versus the enticement of moving up. But a lot of that had to do, too, with the number of junior teams we had at the time. We have too many junior teams now for the amount of kids we're producing. So it's starting to allow big heads and people to move kids up when they're not quite ready. And that's go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, Brock. I think your story about Beagle, you think about, as Wally mentioned, he was probably just big enough. He could have played AAA. And like you say, he was a heart and soul, hardworking guy. Like, you love to coach him. But the question becomes, can you be more than just that energy guy? And that's what you said earlier. It's like, hey, if you stay back, you maybe can develop an offensive element to your game that will make you a much better player, instead of just moving up and staying in that third, fourth line role. And if you remember, Gino Cavallini told the exact same story about a smallish player who, and I forget the guy's name, who went on to, I think he's still playing right now in the NHL. I can't remember who it was, but he was a smallish, underage midget player, wanted to play for Gino's Chicago Mission, AAA team. And Gino had the same discussion with him. Hey, you know what? You could probably play on our team, but you're so small and undersized right now. Like, you might find it really difficult. you have the skill to play. Why don't you just stay back a year and, maybe you grow a bit, you get a bit stronger, but you can still dominate. You can still be a good offensive player. And reluctantly, the parents agreed to it, very reluctantly. And if I remember, I think one of the parents was okay with it and the other one was dead set against it. But they ended up letting the young guy stay back and just develop himself in his game. And it was totally for the good. He found his way scholarship-wise and got drafted, and I think is still playing right now. And again, I can't remember his name. But there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of examples like that. And it's an age-old question,
Well, Tim, one of the other advantages I had is I was that kid. My brother was the stud growing up, and I was the small little guy. And I had a harsh reality when I was 15 when a good friend of ours, Donnie Phelps, cut me from the team, and he felt it would be better for me to play a level below. And it ended up being the best year of my life for development. I went on to play junior ahead of, 16 of the kids that made the team ahead of me 2 years later. So what I learned from that was, size and strength and confidence sometimes will outweigh, moving ahead for your ego. And, so having lived and been able to watch my brother, who was, he was the guy, but he was fully formed and leading every league in scoring at whatever age he was. I wasn't that guy. I was a little guy. And so that's where I really learned from it, was that there were some proper decisions made when I grew up that they were tough to take at the time. But, I look back at it and I use those as examples for people. But today, Tim, in the boys hockey end of it, it has become more and more difficult to have kids play where they probably should develop and gain confidence. And the one thing about Beagle, when he went back and played, was the first time ever he was a top 10 scorer in the league. So we accomplished it. He accomplished what, really it was all about, is that go and gain the confidence and become a better offensive player. And he did. And I give him all the credit because, he persevered, he worked, and he was a great kid and a good hockey player. It's a guy we should be recruiting to come in and be involved with kids.
Sorry, what was that? We missed that.
I just said guys like Jay Beagle should be on the recruiting list to come and be a part of our hockey programs. Just recently retired in Calgary. He should have been earmarked to coach one of our U18 teams the minute he retires. Matt Robinson. These are guys that we need to get involved with our kids because, that's, one of the fundamental challenges we face on the boys' side today is, the leadership of those types of people could really help our programs.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, and I'll tell you this one quickly because I ran into a kid that played on the Royals in '96, the team we went to the Canada Cup with. His name was Greg Davis, and his nephew plays on my son's team. And this is even a greater story. He played midget 1 in his first year as a 16-year-old. 6'4", tall, gangly. And, I watched him in the tryouts and I kept asking people, why did he play midget 1? And there was a corrupt board of directors who wanted nothing good to happen for that kid. Well, I kept him. And interesting enough, he was the only kid that ended up signing a pro contract to him off of that midget AAA team. So he went from midget 1 to AAA at 17 to Oles to down in Montreal to signing a pro contract with St. Louis. And he was the only kid that signed a pro contract off of that U18 team of the 96, 97. His name was Greg Davis. And he happened to be in the rink the other day. And we just, his dad came up and he basically was so appreciative that, I seen through some of the, I call the corrupt board of directors sort of stuff and kept him. But the kid did it. I mean, the kids always will show, but sometimes we're losing sight of what's happening on the ice.
Carrie,
Rather-
your ability, Carrie, to see the talent beyond the size within the kid, the ability to select players. And Sam, when we talk about the female team and who we're inviting to camps, and what are the qualities that you see that merit this? And in my books, talent is sort of a flatline thing that's automatic. They have to have an adequate degree of talent. And he obviously did. He also has size. But I'm saying the most important trait are the intangibles. Right now, they are picking kids that are super skilled with the puck one-on-one on the guy's side. And they have no hockey sense, and they aren't building their character to be a team player. They're just developing themselves for the draft, for their own advancement, at their own expense to be a better player. So that's the critical thing that's happening is you get volunteer boards at times that change the selection process so that the kids who appear to be the most talented, and Gary, I agree, on your team, those young kids appear to be very talented, but the intangible qualities of playing the 200-foot game and doing the little things that they need to learn, they're missing out on that. So the quality of coaches to understand that, and that's where when you refer to retired former players coming back to Calgary, being involved in this process is really important. And there's a vacuum there. The tires are being just spun continually on the developmental side. And the kids are the ones that are suffering. They're really the ones that aren't having a positive hockey experience. The chemistry of the team doesn't exist because there's just a disconnect in the creation of a team and what kind of behaviors you need to have as a team player. And it's really quite amazing to watch, but it's still going on today. And that's sort of the reality. And on the female side, I'm happier working with the female side because I think there's a sense of reason here in Calgary, at least. Tom, when you coached AAA a few years ago and I got to take it over, there wasn't. It was sort of a group of people administering the program, questioning the coaches and questioning mentors of the coaches. And with no real hockey acumen or background, and the ability to be able to share your thoughts and opinion didn't really matter. And that's sort of where it is right now. It's just spinning its tires. The game is mired. And I'm disappointed about what's happening in Toronto, but that's the reality, Sammy. Parents are still taking their kids and accelerating them and not letting them develop. And I go back to Jordan's example of that 16-year-old player is a perfect example of what appears to be the right decision for her growth and development. She's only 16. And I'm just really happy that she's going to get more opportunities because she is so confident now. And that was good to see. Anybody else? Any thoughts? We've gone all over the place. We started out with line combinations and chemistry and talking about the Calgary Flames and Lucic complimenting Huberdeau and the chemistry of that line. 4 good lines of chemistry. And it's amazing where we've got to now. I don't know that, yeah, chemistry plays a part at the AAA midget level, and but it's a little more complex subject at the midget AAA level, and it takes a lot of understanding to create combinations that age. There aren't many people that have that mastery of coaching to understand the chemistry of combinations of players playing together. And
Wally, who really understands the chemistry of players? The players.
Mm.
And sometimes you just got to ask them. We can be all the geniuses we want, but at the end of the day, some kids want to play with some kids and they have chemistry and they want to have fun doing it. Make it happen. Like, it's just, just ask the player. Like, they know.
I just want to put it on your radar, Wally, that the first weekend of this new year, we play against Peter's team. So Montreal is playing Toronto. We play way up in Rimouski, Quebec. So I don't expect anybody to get there, but it's on TSN Direct. So you guys should watch Peter play against Geraldine.
Yeah.
Poor Geraldine.
What day is that, Sammy?
So it's whatever the weekend is. So January 5th and 6th, we play twice. And it is TSN Direct. So it's not on linear, so you can't see it on TV, but just go on your thing. But poor Geraldine has had quite the coaching foray with the Toronto Six. So we're in first place leading into the Christmas break, which is great. So she's done her job. However, she started the first, I don't know if I came on the first game, we played too many players. We didn't realize that the PHF they told us we were playing IIHF rules, which didn't, so we dressed 21. We shared it with everybody. It went through the league offices. It was not caught. We were only allowed to dress 20. So she got suspended for game 2. So she only coached one game that weekend. Then recently, I couldn't play in a Hockey Helps the Homeless tournament in York Region in our area. So I got Angela and Geraldine to play in that tournament on a Friday before a Saturday-Sunday home series. And Angela hooked Geraldine in just a joking manner, took her down, and Geraldine broke her arm in 3 spots.
Oh,
and her forearm right across here. And Jared was staying in Angela's house, and so took her to the hospital. She was in the ER all night, and then had to coach the next day they like reset it, but she hadn't had surgery yet. So coach the next day, hopped up on who knows what with her arm in a sling for the 2 days, then had surgery on the Tuesday. Then we played in Buffalo in the outdoor game. Like 2 days after surgery, she coaches. Then in Buffalo, she gets so sick, she can't get out of bed the next day, and her husband has to come down and pick her up. She can't coach on Sunday. So she's averaging like 1 game a weekend, the poor girl. Yeah, she's, still in such enormous amount of pain, and her arm's in a sling. And, Jer, she's one of the toughest people. She'd never tell you that she's in pain, but anyways, they're back at it and they're back practicing. Our girls had 7 days off to travel back home because most of them are not from the GTA. And hopefully Geraldine got a little bit better, but she still, she can't hold a stick or anything. So tough to coach in that way. And in your first sort of pro gig too is not easy, but Yes, Wally, you have a question. Oh, you're on mute.
Geraldine Heaney, I have to tell this story, Carrie and Tom, because we began talking about chemistry and player selection, and when they come to national camp, what do you do? And this is a true Geraldine Heaney story. In 2001, we were locked we were just sort of at loggerheads about who to pick as the 6th defenseman. And seriously, we argued for hours about the 3 players in question, Geraldine being one of them, because she had been injured, was just practicing now, but the performance up to that point and comparing her with the other 2 players was it was unclear. And in my role, I just said, well, I'm going to try something. And I got Ryan Jankowski, the video guy, to break down the 3 games that we played against Sweden in a BC tour, 3 games of their ice times, those 3 players in question. And we kept track of scoring chances for that they were on for and scoring chances against that they were on for. And we looked at every shift, and we would give a plus if they contributed to the scoring chances in a significant way. If they were a part of it, they always got a plus because they were on. But if they were a minus, were they primarily responsible? A part of the being on the ice. And we were able to add them up over the course of 3 games. The decision, plus 32, was Geraldine Heaney in those 3 games. And it was a mathematical calculation of their shifts, keeping track of what we debated. Ryan and myself, we debated and argued about, is this significantly? Is this a plus? Is this a minus? And it just, wow. And apparently Mark Crawford, with the when he coached in Vancouver, had developed the same kind of an evaluation tool to make decisions near the end of situations. So you really don't know how people impact the game. And it's an objective way of measurement that worked in her case. And
Wally, can you expand a little bit on what, like as a defenseman, what a minus would be, for instance? So you're the D that got skated around versus you're the,
I can give
like
you an example from last night's game. One of the defensemen for one of the teams attempted.
The Canada game or the Flames game?
No, it's a AAA midget game last night.
Oh.
One of the defensemen on a power play tripped over his own feet on the blue line with the puck. They ended up going down and scoring. That's a minus.
But say on a 2-on-2 scenario coming down, like what would the defenseman do to contribute negatively?
Well, I think when you're looking at a situation, there's 2 people making decisions together. Do they switch? There's coaching involved in terms of if they cross high, you hold your lanes. If they cross low, you play man on man. So if the coaching isn't there at some levels, then you have to factor in the coaching to what they do or know or don't know. But at the national level, I'm assuming they know how to teach those situations. They've been taught those situations. And so if it didn't occur, it might be a minus. At any rate, it's a scoring chance. It is a minus. They were on the ice, period. Is it a minus? Now, for me, the minus, and Tim, this is defense, is a forced turnover that results in if somebody's pressuring you and they get the puck and end up scoring, that just might be a minus. But if you have the puck and throw a pass into an open space and they intercept it and score, that's a minus. So to me, it's not that difficult. There's some fundamental cardinals occurring so often in last night's game that it's, to me, they're learning. It's not their fault. They're learning, but they need to learn in a way that they're not demoralized. And right now, the kids are playing their hearts out, but they aren't understanding the nuances of how to play situations and make decisions and that kind of thing. So that's a part of coaching responsibility. And I definitely think at the minor hockey league level, the kids that we've coached in minor hockey, we've tried to teach those things too. We have to make sure that coaches who are so-called high performance coaches now are able to teach those things too. But in Geraldine's case, she ended up going to Salt Lake City, playing a significant role and contributing to the gold medal. But we were at loggerheads. I recall, and this is a funny story, it has really nothing to do with it, coaching in the Alberta Cup with the female side, and it was the last pick of the day for the goalie. And I said, in front of all the staffs are there, all the teams are there. I just jokingly said, well, it's just a goalie, flip a coin. And they did. Now that goalie was our second goalie, became the starting goalie that made the Alberta Cup team that went to the Canada Winter Games and won the Canada Winter Games. And she played alternating games, didn't play in the final. So, nobody else picked her. She got picked because we flipped the coin. So, the precariousness of player selection, shame on us for not, like Kerry mentioned, the work he goes into selecting a team in terms of researching the players and finding out about them from their coaches and other coaches in the year before. He has a good idea. He knows the stats of them. Penalty.
Well, and just want to say one other thing about that, Wally. There's been situations over the years where I had to take teams over like a week before the season and couldn't do the research. The best research came from the smarter players. Just by asking the players who had grown up with kids. You don't want to put them in an awkward position, but I'll tell you, in the situations that you get into and you don't know, sometimes you ask the players and they make it very clear.
I'm wondering, Tim,
I was gonna add, Wally, as you and Tom, we talked about it many times, and Sammy's surely aware, but during the Torino Olympic year, we did that kind of scoring chance for and against analysis for every single game, every single scoring chance, and we did not give a player a plus or a minus for simply being on the ice when a scoring chance occurred, because as we all know, you can be in no way, shape, or form materially involved in a scoring chance for or against, but be on the ice. And so what we were looking for were the players who materially affected a scoring chance for or against. And of course, there's lots of discussion many times, but there's lots of easy agreement many times. And, for me, I was always quick to give credit to a D who made a really good, sharp, intelligent breakout pass. If that led to a cross-ice pass in the neutral zone and a clean entry, and we ended up making another pass or two to score a goal or get a scoring chance, that D gets credit for being materially involved in the generation of that scoring chance. Without that breakout pass, the scoring chance does not happen. And same thing, obviously, on the negative side. And sort of to your point, Wally, like if player A, whether it's a forward or D, gives the puck away on a breakout right on somebody's stick, that player walks in and scores or gets a scoring chance, nobody else really gets a minus unless they could have done something to stop the player after the turnover. Because it doesn't make sense to penalize Brack because he's standing or doing what he's supposed to be doing, and I give the puck away and somebody steps in and scores or gets a scoring chance. Why should Brack be penalized for that simply because he's on the ice? He shouldn't be. You have to look, I believe, you have to look for who's materially involved in the generation of those chances, both for and against. And the last thing I'll say, which I've said many times before, is we had big debates between Mel and myself and Margot about if a player missed the net, was that a scoring chance or not? And that's a whole other discussion. For me, it definitely was still a scoring chance. Doesn't matter if you miss the net, but that's a whole other
I
discussion.
have to apologize because we may have said no, they nothing to do with it. I just threw that out sort of as, okay, it 20 years ago, 40 years ago, how long ago? I don't really remember, but the concept, the detail you talked about, how many coaches can do that? At what
Well,
level?
if you have the availability of video at an elite level, it should get done after every game by somebody. If
Yeah,
you
what are you calling your elite level now? We're talking AAA midget here. Should they be able to do that?
Yeah, they should. If they have video for the game, they should make an attempt to do that. Who's involved with the scoring chances? Who's involved in the scoring chances against? I think it's I think it should be.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't think
Almost
that.
every team, Brack, you would know better maybe because you guys are all working guys, working not professional coaches. But if you've got 2 or 3 assistant coaches, somebody should be tasked with doing something, even if it's like, hey, assistant 1, you do the scoring chances for, because that's easier than doing both. And assistant coach 2, you do the scoring chances against and do a compilation. And then maybe you take turns doing it every game instead of it's every, same person every game.
Or you design a system that does it.
I honestly believe that part of this too is when you do see, kids who making errors, is that you can use this type of statistics to help them become better and not make those errors. And that's, we can be critical and we can do the minus, but the most important thing as a coach is to help those kids stop making those minus. And I think sometimes because we have to be critical, especially this day and age in hockey, where the sensitivity factor is through the roof, you're being critical, but you got critical in a way that you can help them solve making that problem go away, because it is a team sport. And if you can't correct that person who's turning it over continually, and the only way to do is you got to address that it's a problem to begin with. So you guys are all right. And at the AAA level, use of video should be mandatory now, because it's the best way to show the individual without being, harsh or critical, is just to watch themselves. I think
When are
they would
gonna do
get
that?
more out of it
They don't have
just
time.
by a
They're
simple
volunteers.
explanation and seeing it than, the coach harping on them.
They're
Because
not full-time coaches, so I disagree that they should be able to do that. I just think it takes time. I mean, we took 8 hours, 2 of us, paid full-time coaches with the national program. We're watching the AAA coaches here at the Max tournament. At least they recognize game situations. They can recognize them and address them sooner than later, hopefully immediately. That's got to go on. But the in-depth thinking for us as a national staff, like Tim, the choices you made, the best Olympic team ever was that year. That was the best team performance ever, the most dominant. And I think the selection and the chemistry that came from that selection achieved the outcome. And that's the rationale for what works and what doesn't work is the end result. So we had results over a long period of time. Everything we did, yeah, we have to take some credit for it. But that particular year, that kind of objectivity and your kind of detail and getting the coaching staff to think about those things was critical.
So the main point is, Wally, and I know and I agree that it's difficult, and Brack would know better. It's difficult for Bantam AAA and midget AAA coaches, the time requirement. I mean, it took us, it would take us basically. It's like watching a game on TV. It would take us 2 hours, give or take, to go through, the game and record all those scoring chants for and against. And it's difficult to find the time to do that. But if maybe if you're a midget AAA coach, you got to make sure you've got 3 or 4 assistant coaches. Partly for that purpose, and maybe you can't do it for every single game. But the main point is, as we started out, as a coach, you need to know and you need to be able to accurately evaluate your players. And it is often very easy to overlook the guys that generate scoring chances. Yes, we see the primary assist on a goal or a scoring chance, but it's often very easy to overlook who's helping generate those opportunities, if we're talking about scoring opportunities. So if you don't watch video carefully, you're cheating your evaluation process to some degree, unless you're a hockey genius who can take all that in the moment. And I don't know that there's anybody who can do that.
I don't know of any high performance coach coaching midget AAA that would apply this degree of thinking and time that this group does. And I'm looking at Carrie's team. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know the intricate details of what we are automatic to us. And we still need video to see those details. So that's my point. The whole idea is the
Sammy, thanks.
Take care, Sammy. The process of team selection is one thing. And if you've made mistakes, because all they're doing now is making decisions based on talent, physical ability with the puck, not sharing the puck, not being on support, not back checking. And Carrie, like, we watched the game last night, and the breakout, as you mentioned, is fly the zone. Well, they don't have D zone cover because the wingers are so high, they're flying the zone. So when you minus the defenseman, this is a coaching issue, not a player evaluation issue. So if coaches are attending to things, that's what they want to do. They should understand those fundamentals of defensive team play, offensive team play, and not to the degree that we do, but the awareness of what kids learn and understand is our responsibility. Carrie, you're a speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I do think time is a huge factor, Tim, but this day and age, what's happening with how much video stuff's being done, like I used to kind of mock the Buffaloes all the time because they did video, they did analyze, they overanalyzed. Then me and my buddy Jamie Bowman would beat them all the time. And it's becoming more apparent to me that Wally's correct. The amount of intellect that's around here is not happening for the kids, at the levels. And so we're not really developing coaches in a fashion that they can help these kids on the intricacies that are needed. So I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I do know simple hockey basics are not being brought into the picture for a lot of teams. You just got to watch the Royals the other night, Tim, and you just kind of go, holy smokes. I've been watching it all year, and I've been watching, you got guys that have been given so much information, but they're not hitting the basics of behavioral hockey, let alone X's and O's. And so, I'm not in a good spot right now because I just watched three of the most ridiculously games of my life. And my kids playing on the team and our defensive zone and our just simple hockey things are just not even happening. Yet you got energetic, big, strong, skilled players, and they're not playing as a team. And that's it's a fundamental flaw we have in our system right now, Tim, is that we're not developing that type of, and there are some really good coaches out there, but nowhere near enough. Like, and specifically in Calgary, Tim, you got to imagine, like, the Buffs used to be run by all the University of Saskatchewan ex-players, Kevin Dickey, Reed Williams, Kevin Kabelka. The North Stars were run by the Wally Kozaks and the Donnie Phelpsons and the Kerry Brackos for the world. And we really created a better generation of coaches to come back. I've said this to Wally, the challenge we have, and he made a comment the other day, Wally, he talked about when they hire the coaches, they got to have a mentor. And I agree, but I also disagree. We need to find and hire at the U18 level, U17, the coaches that really are mentoring 20 kids to create better coaches. Because you can mentor a guy who doesn't know all you want, and nothing gets accomplished. And so it's still on the board of the organizations who don't do their homework and don't really know what they're looking for in the coaches. I do think that there's an aspect of video that's very important now, Wally, because it's becoming a teaching tool. And so you have to find that fifth assistant coach who is just a video coach, because that's now a position in the NHL. So we should be grooming it in our system.
Well, they have those
Because
programs too, Kerry.
What's that?
They have those programs that break everything down for you. They pay about $100 a game, and they send it to you 2 days later. Every kid shifts or whatever you want to see, which makes it easier.
What's interesting about it, Tom, is a lot of the teams are using that in a proper fashion, but our team doesn't. And and you got to be cognizant of the time of the head coach. But I mean, the way I would deal things is at the game, and you don't want to be hockey 24/7, 365 days a year, because mentally that's draining the fun factor out of it for the kids. But the simple principles have to be addressed. And, we've allowed 20 goals in the last 3 games. And our coaching staff doesn't have a clue why that is. So they'll blame the spoiled rich kids of the Royals. I'm just blaming the lack of leadership and coaching of a proper defensive zone.
Well, what I do is I get the game video, just the game part, so it takes about 5 minutes more than the game. Like, we play 45-minute games, so it takes about 47 minutes to watch it. And I'll just say, okay, watch for this in the game. I just send it out to everybody and watch for these points in the game. And so the players and parents can look for for themselves, and I watch it for, what to work on the next practice. So it isn't really that time consuming, but it is really nice to see a video after you've seen the game when there's no emotion involved.
Who's squeaking?
I don't know where the feedback's coming from. I mean, the other thing on video is we've talked many times on this. It can be, it obviously is a very effective tool in lots of ways. It can be very overdone very easily, but a really effective way, as you said, Brack, to help the kids learn is, if you have video of your team's game and you take the time to even watch as a coach or a staff.
Yeah.
You say, hey, I'm going to watch the first period. Brack, you watch the second period. Wally, you watch the third period. And pick out one clip in each period that you really liked and one clip that we can really learn from on the other side, like that was maybe what can we do better next time. And then you got 6 clips, and then you take 2 of those, one positive, one negative, and you show them to the team. You say, hey, what do you guys or what do you girls like in this clip? What do you see that's really good? Why are we showing you this clip? Then you show them the other one that maybe there's some more constructive or learning stuff in on the negative side. And just show them those 2 clips, see what they see what they learn. And now they've learned something on both sides of the equation. And now you're helping them develop a little bit of hockey IQ.
Who learned something?
The players learn something and the coaches learn something.
Right now,
everybody learns
something
something,
about,
and it is not time consuming, really.
Oh,
the coaches we're talking about obviously don't see what we see.
But they will see something, Wally. All the midget AAA and midget and Bantam AAA coaches, they will see something. And even if they don't see what we think are the most important things, they will see something. And, anyway, there's all kinds of ways.
I wouldn't waste my time on X's and O's. The behaviors are things that are obvious.
But the behaviors can be in those videos, Wally.
Well, I might do that. Like my 2 questions to ask coaches at the end of a period, ask each other, what did you like? What did we do well? What can we do better? That's generally 2 minutes. They're thinking about it. But then go in and ask the players. And if they ask the players, they would learn more about the game than they know. Because the players understand this. They're playing for dads who have played at a high level, some of them. You think they're talking about the game? Of course they are. And they're talking at a very high level. So it's behaviors to me. X's and O's are one thing. And they're fundamentally like Cardinals ones, play in your own zone. Headman the puck. Pressure the puck. Support the puck. Without it, defensively and offensively, we know that. Obviously.
But Wally, I mean, we all agree with that. So the value of the video is if you talk about supporting the puck, there would be a hell of a lot of kids that are 12, 13, 14 years old that don't really know what that means. And the video picture can help them see that. So if you can find a clip where you make, there's really good support going on, they now can see what puck support is, or what a good back check is, or what a good forecheck is. Like just like one player with their feet moving. The video is critical. We all know that, and I know we all agree.
We all went through that, Tim. We over videoed classroom sessions. The players shut us out in 5 minutes, and they do even at the pro level. And until
that's what I'm saying, though. It should be 2 clips. Have a team discussion.
Well, and
that's it.
today.
Danielle and I
use of phones.
mostly overdid video
Really?
with the girls. So
Can you hear me?
yeah,
Well, the other part of the new world is these phones. You could do, Tim, what you just talked, and I'd always say 3 good clips and maybe 1 to learn from. Just pumping up the kids more. You can zip them across their own phones in next to no time.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
I mean, it's technology can help get it across, but Wally's correct. The coaches don't know what they don't know. They could be sending out garbage. And so you still got to go right back to that group. They're so vital for kids to have a good experience. And the Cardinals from the behavioral start, and Wally's right, the X and O's, you can't even begin if you don't have a work ethic and discipline. So anyways, I think we're arguing about the same thing.
Tim, are you going to be going to watch Meet Dom?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go? We might as well go.
Yeah. Do you want to come by and pick me up?
Yeah, I can do that probably like what, right at 1:30. I'll get there a little before 1:30.
Yeah, if we get there before 1:30, we got a chance to visit him because the game, while it starts at 2:15, there's an anthem and that kind of thing. I don't know if there will be today, but that would be good because I think the chance to visit him and talk to him would be better before when the girls are dressing.
Okay, so you want to get there at 1:30 then?
I think it would be a good idea just to meet with Dom. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll pick you up at 1 or a little before 1. Like it'd be a half hour from your place?
Yeah.
So guys, say hi to Dom for me.
Okay.
A while since I coached him. He was 12 when I coached him. So he's a good guy, and say hi to him. I gotta run. Great conversation, guys.
Yeah, take care.
Where's the game at?
Chestermere.
You want to go, Tom?
No,
A little bit of a road trip.
They're playing Airdrie today.
Yeah, I don't have that much time to drive that far out and back. My granddaughter's in town and she's going back to Vancouver soon, so I got to see her.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to run then. And we're at hour 42, and I've got some, hopefully, editing to do.
Okay, one quick thing before you go that I note. I was watching the Latvia-Switzerland game the other day, and one of my coaching pet peeves happened again. I was so cheering for Latvia to win the game. You know, it would have been great for them. And they're up by a goal with under 2 minutes left. So Switzerland pulls their goalie, face off in the Latvia zone. They got nobody on the boards. No defenseman on the boards. It's like a 5-on-3 penalty kill. It's one of my pet peeves. You always have a defenseman on the boards because if the puck squirts that way, you have a chance, you know.
Yeah.
You make the team earn possession. So they don't have anybody on the boards. The puck squirts sideways right to where the defenseman would have been on the hash mark. But of course he's not there. So Switzerland gets possession and they score and they win the shootout. And I emailed Poundy because she's doing a great job on there. I said, Poundy, and I explained this whole situation. This is one of my pet peeves as a coach, and I don't know if you guys will have a chance to discuss it. And I didn't watch the game last night, so I don't know if they discussed it at all. But I was so upset for the Latvians. Like, if they have a D there, they might have won the game in regulation. Who knows?
Well, the other stupid thing that happened is they were putting the puck out, and one of the players had the hand over the boards.
Yeah.
Hand over the boards. So it got shot out, and because it hit the player's hand, instead of just bouncing out and getting out of the zone, the whistle goes to the face-off went in their end instead of being outside, at the blue line where it would have been for shooting it out of the ice.
Yeah, and that was the same face-off.
And that was the face-off.
Yeah.
So if the player doesn't have his hand over the board, hanging over the boards, you know, they would have won the game.
Yeah. Every rink should maybe have to put a little bar in underneath the top of the board so the players can put their hand there instead of on top of the boards.
Yeah, that was it, because that would be such a big win for them. Because
Oh yeah,
play pretty good.
yeah. Have they ever won at the World Junior? I didn't know. A
I
game?
don't know. I wouldn't doubt that they beat Germany or one of those kind of teams once in a while.
Yeah, I didn't know. But of course, it would have been huge for them. It's really too bad. But
Listen, last night's game, I'm sitting with Carrie, and Barry was there as well. Don Phelps sat with us too. We just got to watch the game and see these things happen. And behaviorally, they played a good game. There was no stupidity, no bad penalties.
this is the Royals?
The Royals, they played
Yeah.
behaviorally a good game. The X's and O's we're talking about, flying the zone. They were better on the power play in terms of outnumbering and maintaining possession, but they gave up, I think, 2 shorthanded goals last night. So Kerry mentioned that the power play is 3. They've got 3 power play goals, 4 and 5 against this year in 40 power play attempts. They've given up more goals on the PK than they've got on their own power play. And with the one thing, it was really Kerry pointed it out, the young line that we're talking about scored a big goal. And they had I didn't notice that they had rushed up the ice, they had to back check, rush up the ice again, and they scored. And the coaching staff kept them out there. And they got scored on. And Kerry brought up the point. He said, they rushed, they had to back check, they had to rush again. He said, that's a mistake to leave them out there. And we agreed that Scotty Bowman's idea of sit a shift, reward the next one, was something that could have happened. So Don Phelps and I said, okay, if you're mentoring, what would you do? And Don said, I'd ask the coach, is there anything that he would do differently in the whole game? That if he could change it, what would he change? To see if he was aware of that decision. And it's one of many that can add up to a good result or a bad result. But we talked about that. That was just one of those mentorship moments, I call it, where a coach decided to leave him out there at the end of a scoring, at the end of a shift when he might have changed them. And it did lead to an immediate goal, like within 30 seconds they got scored on. But it's all good. And Tim, I'm looking forward to seeing Dom's team and meeting Dom. I haven't had a chance to talk to him except the first day for about 5 minutes. But today we get there soon.
About outdoor ice. And I told him about if that was yesterday. And I don't know if he went or not. But I just put on the Latvia-Finland game. The period just ended. Latvia is behind 2-0 to Finland, but the shots are only 20-17, so it looks like it's, a pretty competitive game.
I was so happy for Huberdeau last night too to get the game winner, especially when he was the GOAT on the second goal against. Because I mean I haven't watched probably as much as you guys have, but when I watch him, he's one of the best players they have at keeping the play going in the offensive zone. When he's in a tight spot, he freaking always finds somebody to get the puck to, always. And pretty amazingly, a lot of times, little tight area passes. Like he is really, really good, effective offensive player. And freaking Gaudreau has 10 goals this year. he's got 7, and people are bitching and moaning and complaining about his play, and they're just way off base in my mind. I mean, we all knew we were getting a bit more of a playmaker than a scorer. Like Gaudreau is a bit more of a scorer than a playmaker, but they're both really good offensive players, and it's I think he's been maligned. So I was happy for him.
Tim, if you're coaching him, I call him 50-50. I agree with you in the, well, let me have my say, please. 50-50 means he makes great plays, unbelievable passes, but he's the last one to touch the puck many times in the O zone.
I disagree, Wally. I just totally see a different player.
Well, I call him 50-50.
Well, watch a little more closely
In that regard.
And I will too.
And then when you add on that, as a low forward, they're playing him as a low forward. They didn't play Gaudreau as a low forward in the D zone in Calgary, but he is playing as a low forward here. And I think that's where he's susceptible in those situations. But
I think he's first guy back, he's low forward.
well,
Yeah, I hardly ever see him give the puck away in the offensive zone, like hardly ever. And he made a bad defensive error last night. But
I thought the last month he's really become way more effective than he was at the start. I thought at the start he was giving it away a lot, just kind of passes. But now I think in the last month he's been, as advertised.
yeah, and I didn't see a lot early on. I'm only and again I haven't seen, like, how many games have they played? 35. I maybe watched good chunks of maybe 10 or 12 games, I guess. But I just see him doing a hell of a lot of really good things offensively, even though he hasn't scored quite as much as people would like. But anyways, I'm just happy for him last night.
should he shoot more?
Well, he had a couple of great chances last night before he actually scored too.
Yeah.
He had 2 great, like grade A. I think he had a breakaway, and then he had a great double A in the second period.
Right in front, the goalie gloved it.
Yeah. So it was nice for him. I'm sure he's feeling a lot better. But that's a great
got
line.
to win the game though. Right
Sorry?
up top. When he spun and shot right up top, that was a hell of a shot.
Yeah. That's the line's really going well now. I like their lines now.
I really like their lines too. It just, they make much more sense.
Yeah, like I said, at the front end, they'll need to switch the lines at some point again for some reason, but they know they can come back to this combo, and it's a pretty, like, that fourth line is really playing good hockey now too. Like, they're really effective. Like,
and they've got as many goals as the other lines, basically.
Yeah.
6 and 7, something like that.
Yeah, and they should have had a couple last night too. Like, wow.
Well, number 24, what's his name? He's playing like twice as good as I thought he could play.
Richie?
Yeah.
Richie, yeah.
I thought last year he was horrendous. I thought he was your play ender. I remember they played him with Gaudreau and he ruined every rush. But now he's skating like crazy. He's making some plays.
Yeah, he and Lewis look like peas in a pod, really.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis also.
Yeah.
They just, and I think putting the Ruzicka with them, because Ruzicka's a skill guy, and it gives them a little bit of, they're not just out there to smash everybody around, which I think that's all they were doing before.
Yeah, and they all are obviously big, strong guys that can skate. Like, it's a really good fourth line. And if they could just freaking learn to play a little better in their own end, they might have something. But they're still, geez.
Listen, I got to ask both of you a question, because when Kerry brought it up, ask ask the players. Have you ever asked the players about who to play with or who some of the combinations might be? I never did.
Yeah, I've done that. Like I don't necessarily like it when the players come to you and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I want to play with this player."
Yeah.
Like I think that's a little.
Oh yeah.
Like sometimes I guess you have to listen. Like it happened a couple of times at Vermont, and I'm like, you take it in and try to consider it. But I think it's better to be proactive and ask. And they have to understand that, just because you ask and they say player A, it doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately or always or forever. But it's good to have their input.
Did you make changes in combinations during games?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Tom?
Oh yeah, if something isn't working, or someone just is having a terrible game, or
Would you do that in the first period, second, third, or like that? I think that's a huge part of coaching.
I don't think it's like, I don't think it matters when. It's just when it seems that it's appropriate. This
Yeah.
isn't working, I got to try something else, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I call that coaching with the gut, and I think it's a real art. And I like what Sutter does. He's had to make changes in games because of the way things were going. Last night's game, the timeout he called, I didn't see it as it was called, but it was talked about on the post game show.
But they, in the post game show, they talk like, oh, they all of a sudden played well. They sucked for the next 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they started playing well.
Yeah.
That whole first half of the second period, they were awful.
I would love to know what exactly he said in that timeout, because it was right after, Huberdeau made the pretty gross defensive error, just got totally watching the puck stuck on the boards, and the D snuck down on him. And it was right after that he called the timeout. So
That's thing I wanted to discuss too is that when you're shrinking the zone, in the corner, so the winger, what you end up is you get close to the boards and you're cutting off that pass to the point, right? But when you look at the puck, a smart defenseman then will jump down. So Huberdeau looks down at the puck, and that D's now jumps down, and he's on the inside of him. And that's that shrink there. You kind of lose that between the guy and the net positioning. And now he's on the wrong side of him. And
and that's a coaching choice, and it's a long debated, but I would never want my forward. I mean, it happens, but if I showed them that video, I would ask Huberdeau, what could you do better or differently in this situation? And for me, it would be, instead of his back to the defenseman, standing right on the boards, looking at the puck, if he's standing like this, so he has one eye on his defenseman, and he's right on the boards with his stick, and he can see this way. Now it's less likely that D is going to jump down, and he's not going to be aware of it. But when you've got your back to the defenseman, I'm that defenseman. Green light, man. I'm just waiting to jump. But if I see the forward like this, then I know, well, maybe it's going to be there, but maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But he just gave the D the complete green light.
The basketball terminology when I teach that, that man-u ball triangle that they teach in basketball. Say the same thing with hockey, man-u puck. So you've got to be aware of all, both things. And like you said, his back is to the play, and it's too late. Once a guy's moving and you're flat-footed, you're not. The only thing you do is whack his hand or something.
Yeah, I always just like to talk to them like one eye on the puck, one eye on your man or your check if you're female, whatever. One eye each way, and that promotes the swivel head too. Like you got to be aware of both.
Yeah,
So,
that is tough coverage.
yeah,
Because
you
you're
know,
not
if
real
you,
good defensive positioning as far as coverage goes.
yeah, like you can. I always felt like you could be, almost a stick length off the boards, as and if you want to have your stick on the boards in that lane to help discourage that pass up to the top, that's fine. But I mean, he knows. But it would be interesting if you showed him that clip and just asked him a question. And that's what coaches can do. Obviously, It's like, okay, John, what do you do differently next time? Because this is going to happen again and again and again. And I don't know, maybe like you said, I'd like to know what the essence of Daryl's little timeout chat was then, because he seemed to be talking about the goal situation. And I don't know if he's talking about that specifically or how he addressed it, but it would be interesting to know. So you know what I might do? A really good friend of mine who I played bantam and midget with, who I see very infrequently here, he's a bartender at the Garage at Eau Claire Market. And he says Daryl comes in there quite often on sometimes after games, but quite often on Sunday nights, and has a beer with them. So I might have to go and see Dan at the bar and see if Daryl wanders in. And I can ask him that. Hey, what you talking about? I'm sure he won't tell me, but yeah, funny. Anyway, Wally, I'll see you. I'll get there as close to 1 as I can.
All right, guys, I want to make sure the record of this